Okay, so this is the first round of my very first over the board tournament. This is the first game I ever played in an official rated tournament. So I'm in Canada, so I'm facing an opponent who was rated 1426. So going into this tournament, I didn't really know what to expect. Very excited because I think chess is a lot of fun, but I didn't have high hopes because I'm only rated about 1200 on chess.com, and I think usually the real life ratings are a bit lower than your online rating. So I was expecting to place somewhere in the 1000 rating. And my first opponent is a little tiny girl, and she's rated 1400. So I'm ready to be crushed here. A lot of times with kids, they're actually higher than their rating. Like their actual strength is higher than their rating because they're improving so fast, or at least that's what I've heard. So yeah, we got into the. This is the first game here, so let's get into it. So I'm playing black, and my opponent starts off with d4. So already I'm not excited. I was hoping the only opening I know is the French defense really as black. I have studied a little bit of the Albin counter gambit, so I'm hoping we'll get into that, and we do. So she plays the Queen's Gambit. So I get to play the Albin counter gambit, which is this move e5. And I think that sometimes people aren't ready for this if they're playing the Queen's Gambit, so I'm just hoping to surprise people. Okay, so she goes down the main line, so she takes, and I push d4. So the idea is like I'm just trying to be annoying for white. Try to have this pawn stuck in her position the whole game. I've got her to double her pawns, and so even though I'm down a pawn, just try to make things complicated. I also have this check that she always has to worry about that she can't block with her knight here. So yeah, let's see how it goes. So she plays knight f3, which is perfectly fine. And I decided to play c5, which is definitely a mistake here, because it allows my opponent to play e3. Now, before here, so let's say my opponent plays e3 here, we actually go into a big trap line. So I can have this check. My opponent, my opponent has to make at least a few mistakes here, but one of the famous traps in this opening, which is why I'm playing it, is if they decide to block with the bishop here, I can just take this pawn, sacrificing my whole bishop. But now you can see the queens are lined up. So if I take with check, my opponent can't take the pawn back because the queens are lined up, right? So he would have to push his king there. And then I have a really cool move. So I want to get a skewer, but right now the knight can block. So I have to take this knight. But if I promote to a queen, let's just say I promote to a queen, he can then get out of this skewer by taking my queen here, and then taking my other queen. And so I just kind of lost this bishop, and you can see actually material is equal, and whatever. I haven't really gained an advantage. So what instead you can do is take this, but promote to a knight. So now the opponent's in check. They can't take this queen because they're in check, so they have to take this knight, or they can move the king. And yeah, now we get the skewer. So that was one of the cool trap lines I had studied before the game, and that's why you're not really supposed to play. That's why you're not supposed to play F. Sorry, hang on. Here we go. Yeah, that's why you're not supposed to play this move, is to keep this check alive. This is very powerful in the counter gambit. Okay, so then my opponent can play e3. They're allowed to do this now because I don't have a check anymore. So this move is actually the best move. I defend my pawn, take, and they develop their bishop. And so here I'm like way out of theory. I think I was out of theory. Yeah, I was out of theory back when I decided to play this move. So right here was the last theory I knew. Okay, so I have to kind of think on my own now. I'm not really sure what to do. And I was looking at trying to get something going on this diagonal, because they can't block this pawn. So hopefully I can just kind of sacrifice this pawn if I need to get this pressure along this diagonal here. And the other idea I saw was I can attack this pawn here. So my opponent played this. So it's my turn, and I can attack this pawn and maybe also try to set up on this diagonal. So I'm assuming I'll play here. Maybe my opponent will play here, and then I can play bishop here. And we're into a game, although this maybe isn't the best because I think my opponent could just kind of block this pawn like that. Anyway, that was my idea. So I played queen b6, maybe not the best move. And here my opponent made a big mistake. So a3. And you can see my idea was the rook is trapped, and so let's go take the rook. So my queen gets in, and at this point during the game, I'm starting to sweat. I'm starting to shake. This is my first ever game, and I was expecting just to get absolutely trashed. And actually, I'm gonna win. So if I can win this rook and I can hold on for the rest of the game, I should be able to win this game. So keep in mind, my opponent can't play bishop here or knight here to defend the rook like that, or to defend the rook like that, just because my pawn is here. So the knight also can't move out of the way anywhere because she blocked herself with a3. So yeah, I'm actually able to infiltrate here, and you have to calculate before you do this kind of move just to make sure you're not going to get trapped. So she took with the knight, and I took the rook. It's funny, the engine actually recommends taking the knight. I think that's because after I take with the rook, my opponent can play here, I have to play here, and the queen's sort of getting stuck. So it's going to be maybe a little bit hard. You can see already I can't really escape. I'm going to have to, I don't know, try to figure out some way to rescue the queen. Okay, but anyway, I got lucky here, so I took the rook, and my opponent played knight b5, and she's looking to get a fork on me. So yeah, now luckily I have this check, so I'm able just to get my queen out nice and safe. And that was really the only risk, was getting my queen trapped. So she didn't really worry about that, and she just looked for an attack on me. So I was able to retreat, get my queen back up to safety. She blocked, and at this point I'm up a rook. So if I can just trade down all the pieces, I'll have an extra rook, right? So I decided to take, and I move my king over to stop this check. Now I have to be careful, so you'll notice she has 3 of her pieces developed, and this piece is, pretty close to getting into the game, whereas I've got all my pieces kind of stuck doing nothing, right? So I have to be careful here. She's going to launch a big attack, and I have to try to make my extra rook feel useful. So if I'm playing the game but I don't get to move this rook, I might as well not have it. So my goal is really just to get my pieces out, to trade off for her active pieces, and just to win. So here we go. Develop my knight, get my knight into the game, and the other reason I may want to develop here or whatever, this is usually the standard square, but also I end up providing an extra defender on d7. I was looking at rook d1, and so now if there's any revealed stuff, I can... this is, a good defensive move is the point here. So yeah, she played rook d1, and I blocked with my bishop here. So sort of setting up all my pieces to defend each other. Everything's kind of defended, and I don't have to worry about a reveal check anymore. This knight is also stopping this bishop from moving here, pressuring the pinned piece, because I'm expecting this bishop's going to move next move probably, right? So yeah, here we go. Bishop moves, adding pressure to this pinned piece, and also threatening now a check on this square. So I have to be a little bit careful. My opponent's doing a good job of keeping the pressure on. You can see now all of her pieces are in the game. Well, except this one. I guess these two aren't in the game, but the rest of their pieces are doing a great job of putting pressure on me. So I'm able to just move my rook over and defend this square. Pretty simple. And she played this move. Very interesting. So I'm trying to trade off all my active pieces. And I think she knows this. I know my opponent is, she's rated 1400. So I know she knows what she's doing. So instead of just instantly taking this, I had to sit there and think. So if you take this, then she can take back with her knight. She's threatening your rook. So let's say you dodge with the rook, then she gets a fork. And so she's winning back some of her material. Okay, so, that was a cool trick she tried to play, but luckily I was able to see it. So instead of trying to take, maybe I need to do something else. So I just decided to try to kick out the knight. So now she takes my bishop. Maybe she could have done something better, but us actually the engine recommendation is just to take. So I don't know. This feels weird though, just trading off her piece. This is a way better piece than this piece. Whoops. And this piece was also stopping my rook from getting into the game. So I thought she didn't really need to trade off. Although I don't know what the alternative is. I guess if she retreats with her knight, I guess, here, then I can take anyway. Now I can take. So, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, I guess, if she takes or I take. Anyway, okay, so knight comes in, threatening the rook here, and it's also threatening this pawn with check. So I can either move my rook here or here, and I decided to keep it on the sort of open file. So we played c7. She's just trying to get her knight into the game. And yeah, I'm just trying to trade off all the pieces. So I bring my knight back, try to kick this knight out of here. Now the engine actually recommends to move your king up like this. I don't know about that. I guess that makes sense. But in the game, I played knight e8. Okay, so threatening to take this knight. And yeah, the engine recommends moving the knight back here. So I think actually, yeah, now my knight's really misplaced. But I think here she definitely made a mistake when she took my knight. So now I can get my rook into the game. Now all my pieces are defending, doing something, right? This piece is pinned, but it's got lots of defense. I can move this knight if I need to defend it somewhere. I've got the rook defending it and the king defending it. And, you know, now I'm fighting 4 pieces versus 3 pieces. So should be winning this game. So very promising. My first game, I'm like feeling the victory. And at this point, I think I have about 30 minutes on my clock, and my opponent is still at like 50 minutes or like 45 minutes or something. So she really wasn't taking her time to think. But she was still playing like really excellent moves. And, you know, it's also very disheartening when you lose a rook in the opening. So I totally understand. Okay, so she puts double pressure on my piece here. And I played what I thought was a very cool move. I played knight d4. So it looks like I'm just kind of losing a knight. But because this defends the bishop. But I have back rank mate. So she can't take that. And the other thing is it disconnects this pin. So if she doesn't do anything, I can just take the bishop on the next move, right? So pretty cool, I thought. I thought this was a very fun move. And yeah, so she defended her bishop. So now if I take, she doesn't just lose it for free. And yeah, the other thing too is it's also defending against back rank mate. So now she's actually threatening to win my knight. And if I check her, she just moves her king out of the way, and it's not a big worry. So I defended my knight by taking this pawn on c4, and you can see now everything's falling apart. She's only got 1 pawn here, and she's down a piece, and her rook's kind of out of the game. So yeah, she traded off. I took with the king. She played knight here. She's just trying to get a fork, hoping I miss this on the king and the rook there. But yeah, I saw it. I still have 25 minutes on my clock, so I'm able just to take my time and think through all their threats. And as long as I'm careful here, I should be able to win this game. She's just threatening my rook. I move my rook out of the way. I do need to keep my knight defended here because it is under attack. And I'm also adding a threat onto this pawn. So she decides to check, and then check again. And I just get my king to safety here. And she decides to defend this way. Now, something that's very interesting, I didn't actually notice. During the game, I thought, oh, why didn't she defend like this? But I have a fork. So, yeah, this is actually the move to defend. I played my knight here, attacking the rook and the pawn. And she attacks my knight while defending the pawn. But I'm able to give her a check and then defend my knight. So, now there's 2 attackers on this pawn. And she can't use this knight to defend the pawn. So this pawn's going to fall, and I've got 2 pawns on 0 pawns if that happens. And also her rook's kind of trapped in the game. It can't really go anywhere. So not looking good. She plays her knight here, looking to take my rook, but I can just take this pawn with my rook. And she takes, I take, and then she resigned. So she actually grabbed her king and tipped it over. So that was the first game I played. And yeah, very happy to have won. Now, so I remember in the game, I didn't know what to do. She like paused the clock, and I'm like, what do we do? This is my first game. And she kind of looked at me, she's like, what? This is your first game? And she looked really sad. And I was like, oh no. And I tried to be like, no, don't worry. I practice a lot online. And And she's like, "Oh, like what's your rating?" And I was like, "Oh, it's only 1200." And then she was really disappointed in herself when she got beat by a 1200. But yeah, it was a great game, and honestly, the game just came down to this one mistake that she made here, letting her rook get trapped, and I was able to defend the rest of the game pretty well. I had to be pretty careful, but yeah, very very pleased with that game. Okay, so now that I've beaten a 1400, I've got 1 point, and there's only 4 games. So that means my next game coming up is going to be against someone who's better than 1400. So my fear meter is going up, but I'm feeling good though. I won a game, so very pleased. If I lose every other game in this tournament, I would be very happy. I would still be happy with my performance. Okay, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.